Ava Rockwell, it is so good to have you on the Jacked Up podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, the honor is all mine for sure. I am really intrigued and pumped to get into this conversation because some of the things that you do with your practice are absolutely amazing to me. And I can't wait for my audience to hear about all the different things that you've got going on. So
Well,
now, with that being said, why don't you kind of tell us how you got involved in doing what you're doing? A little background on you.
Okay, so when I was young, I grew up, my aunts were always giving me vitamins, and I started learning about essential oils when I was 11. I was ginseng hunting, digging with my father in the woods when I was 5. I just grew up around like root medicine, herbalism, supplements, nutrition, and all of that stuff was really important growing up on my father's side of the family, and it just always stuck with me. And then later on, when I went into schools, when I was younger in my 20s, I did attend an online school, ended up closing. And then about 10 years later, actually about 20 years later, I wanted to revisit it all again and go back. And the schools that were available had interesting programs, but I didn't feel any of them would truly prepare me with the confidence I needed to master the skill sets to like really help people. So fortunately, I decided to create a school, but it was a lot more work than I realized. So that's how we got here today. I created a school for natural health.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Okay, so now I know that one of the things that you are really, really promoting right now and trying to educate people on is the importance of iodine in the diet and how that can actually be used to treat a multitude of situations. So if you could just kind of do a little deep dive into that and explain, because a lot of people think iodine and they think, oh, like if you're old like me, you think iodine of stuff that you actually used to put on cuts, that mercurochrome, and you think of iodine in salt, but you don't really think about it being used as a medicine, so to speak. So why don't you give them a little background into that?
Okay. So iodine is taught in med school to conventional medical doctors as a poison, that you need a very small amount of it. And this research is all based from the 1950s, so it's out of date. And functional medicine doctors are on the forefront of cutting edge medicine. They have done the research for about 100 years now. And it's unbelievable. Iodine used to be used to treat breast lumps, cancers, and successfully often, but it's greatly lacking today in our society, nutrient-wise. We're also further depleted because of environmental toxins. So it's something we're almost like all depleted in, and it's one of the most important factors that we need in our body because we have iodine receptors in our breasts and our sex organs, our endocrine system. And when we don't have the proper amount of iodine, what happens is these competing elements such as bromide, fluoride, and chlorine set on top of these iodine receptors and block them and block absorption and uptake of iodine, resulting in what the evidence says and what functional medicine doctors like Dr. David Brownstein out of Michigan are indicating, that it's like a 70% or more increase in cancer rates, according to them and their science, their theories, their experience.
Wow, that is crazy. And I'm glad you touched on bromide. And the reason I say that is this, I used to, back when I was really, really heavy and I didn't care about what I ate, what I drank, before I went through my whole journey, I used to drink a lot of soda. I mean, a whole lot of soda. And once I went through everything that I went through and got my education and all that, I realized that, the effects that bromide can have on those receptors. And then I got looking into some of the ingredients that are in some of these sodas. And there are bromide derivatives in the sodas. Now they talk about, soda being so bad for people to drink, but they're not really saying why. A lot of times they're saying, well, it's the sugars and it's the different color additives and stuff like that. But when you look at the fact that, they were actually putting bromide derivatives in soda and then you're putting that in your body, it's just not a good thing all the way around.
I am so happy that you addressed that subject with the soda specifically, because for me, I haven't and don't drink a lot of Mountain Dew or anything like that. But Mountain Dew has a lot of in it, and
Yes.
maybe the other sodas do too, but specifically Mountain Dew, and for sure, you can see it, and that would have just slipped my mind because I'm like, oh, I don't drink soda, but that is one of the chief places where people get it. So I'm
Absolutely,
really
and that's what I used to drink was Mountain Dew.
Exactly. People are getting it in the pools, the hot tubs, the shower, the toothpaste. So
Yeah,
even in
I spent a little bit of time where I was a service technician for pools and hot tubs, and it wasn't long. It was actually during that time when I found out about the bromide derivatives in the soda, and here I am thinking, I go out to people's houses and I show them how to use bromine to keep their pools or their hot tub sanitized, and people are putting this stuff in their body. It's insane. And then when I realized what they actually do inside the body, I started leaning people towards salt systems to sanitize their hot tubs and their pools and stuff like that.
There's also Bacquacil, which is predominantly just hydrogen peroxide for pools. But I think the hot tubs get a little more iffy because of the temperature and the bacteria. But yeah, it's so funny to hear you actually say that from, again, your experience. It really brings it home to me because I like to swim really badly, and I will do a spray oil. I know I spent years refusing to swim because of the chlorine. I know what it does. It's terrible, but I cannot not swim, and there's very, very few heated saltwater pools. And then the hot tub issue, like I said, you really have to know what you're doing to have that stuff natural, but there are natural alternatives in our programs. We provide you with the solutions. You can research them yourself. Yeah, but they pull iodine out of the body, so we're depleted. The statistics are really bad. Women that are on thyroid meds, when they start taking the thyroid medication, it starts pulling more iodine out of the body, and what happens is they end up with 15. What is their rates of breast cancer are astronomical. I forget, it's almost like double or more what a regular woman's is. Anyone who's been on thyroid medications, or especially for 15 years and longer, their breast cancer rates are through the roof. They have essentially, in my opinion, the evidence is pointing at zero iodine in the body, and you really can't have too much iodine because it spills with a healthy thyroid. It will spill out. There are a few exceptions if you want to talk about contraindications, but there's a lot more to
that's
discuss.
what I was going to ask you. What are the optimum levels for iodine? I mean, what should people be looking for? How much iodine should they be getting in their diet and things of that nature?
So first of all, they're not really going to get a lot in their diet. You can do seaweed, but some people have issues with seaweed or seafoods. I personally, I'm like, we are in an imperfect world. I will still consume seaweeds until, again, like someone concretely brings me the evidence, like, look, you really don't want to do this. Otherwise, I'm just like, I will still eat seaweed. But again, the problem with seaweed is the same issue with iodized salt, is that as time goes by, the iodine does evaporate out. And so even if you're eating quantity of, say, dulse every morning, I like to toast dulse and some butter with like a couple yolks for breakfast if I'm actually going to eat breakfast, and like a couple Brazil nuts. Then you put iodine and your selenium together. But what a lot of experts are not discussing, including, unfortunately, the functional medicine doctors, I assume it's because they're so busy and overwhelmed, they're just like, take iodine, take iodine. And even though Dr. Brownstein addresses it in his book that you need to take selenium too, when you see the post, it doesn't include, like, it cannot be emphasized enough that if you don't take the proper amount of selenium with the proper amount of iodine, what can happen, in my opinion, that I've seen is that, not from people that I've worked with, but in the evidence that I've read, is that's where Hashimoto become an issue, because people will say, well, iodine is dangerous to the thyroid, and if you take it, you're going to blow up your thyroid and come down with Hashimoto's, not just a hypothyroid, slow, but an actual autoimmune where your thyroid is being destroyed. So Dr. Brownstein, that's not really the case. He says that what will happen is iodine will make Hashi's apparent. It'll bring it to the forefront, or you could have sat on it for years and it wouldn't have shown. That's his theory. But my theory is, well, I'm not saying this is not also his theory, but he also emphasizes it's an issue when you don't take it with a proper amount of selenium. Iodine is a problem without. They're like best friends. It's kind of, if you're familiar with supplements, it's like vitamin A and D. They go together.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
friends. So you cannot
Yes.
do iodine without selenium. And then when you're talking about what are the proper amounts, so everyone's going to be a little bit different. Women in Japan, through their diet, like seaweed and seafoods, because it is an iodine ocean, and so they are getting about a minimum of about 12.5 milligrams per day, which is considered, more than what we require here. And they have much lower rates of breast cancer, ovarian cancers, right? And then it shows when Japanese women come to the United States, they're not eating that seafood diet, rich diet, and their rates go back to the normal American woman's. So basically, I've read about 4 books on iodine, and one of them was just about women and breast cancer and how, we're going to bleed into naturopathic oncology here, because iodine and oncology, they go together hand in hand. So in terms of prevention and sometimes reversal, I will say with a disclaimer, there is always a crapshoot. Unfortunately, as sad as it is, when it is your time to go for, there is an end situation where, maybe something won't work. But if anything is going to really help, it would be iodine. And people are using it to prevent cancers, but often to reverse breast cancers or to stay it and minimize increase growth or, it getting worse. And men are using it to reverse prostate cancer and to do maintenance. So in terms of dosages, we do offer an iodine course, and it does discuss this in detail. We have about a 75-page printable reference guide, and it has dosages for children, adults, and stuff. And I don't have the dosages memorized. I can tell you what I do for myself, because all the dosages are going to be, to some degree, they're moderate. For me now, I started out slow to make sure I didn't have an allergy to test it because it was new. But I will tell you, women that have fibrocystic breasts, if you take this for, if they're mild and you take it for 1 or 2 nights, they're gone. And 20 years ago, they were telling me when I was researching this phenomena of really sore, tender, achy breasts, what the phenomenon is fibrocystic breast disease. And they were saying that it is not cancerous. Now we know that fibrocystic breast disease is actually precancerous. And basically, if you stopped a bunch of women on the street and said, do you have sore, achy breasts all the time or half of the month? They would say yes. So I think it's epidemic. This depletion is epidemic. So what people are doing, for myself, I titrated up. So I started out with 12.5 milligrams and I went to about 25. And now I'm taking about 50 to 70 a day. And I feel great. I think it really has sped up my metabolism. Dr. David Brownstein says that sometimes all people really need to do is supplement with iodine. They don't even need lifetime thyroid meds. He does say if you're going to take thyroid medication, you need to have your iodine levels checked and or begin supplementation before, because it's going to pull more iodine out. But we have these women taking these thyroid meds and they're not taking any iodine or selenium supplementation. And then a lot of them, unfortunately, are being diagnosed with breast cancer. That's because your breasts need the iodine, your ovaries need the iodine, your prostate, your thyroid.
I actually have 2 friends that both have thyroid issues and are on medications, and they both supplement with iodine. So it's, and I've known this for years, but I never really understood the correlation. So it's really cool that we're having this conversation, because now I understand, which is at the heart of why I do this podcast on a regular basis anyway, because there are so many things about the body that people just don't understand, and it's everything from iodine supplementation to nutrition as a whole. Nutrition and exercise are the best medicines there are out there. Take the pharmaceutical companies and just throw them out the window. Control your diet and exercise, and you're going to cure half of what's going on with most people out there today.
Right. I agree completely. Conventional medicine has its place in terms of diagnosis, and it composes a wide library of scientific data on symptoms, which allows a holistic practitioner to zero in on what their options are, but conventional medicine is acute care. They need to stay in their lane. They study pharma in extreme conditions, So
yeah, exactly. I liken it to from my years ago when I was a mechanic. I liken conventional medicine to like a scanner that you hook up to the car. It'll give you the trouble codes and tell you what's wrong with it. It's not going to fix it, but it'll give you the trouble codes and tell you what's wrong with it. Then it's up to you or someone else to straighten out the problem.
They can fix a broken arm, that give you a diagnosis, but it's terrible treating chronic disease.
Yeah, absolutely. So now how does iodine play into some of the strategies that should be, if they aren't already, being implemented surrounding COVID?
Iodine, our course is called Iodine, the Miracle Elemental, because it essentially does everything. Dr. Circus is saying that it should be the new vaccine because it acts as also like an antiviral, but also in terms of like COVID, yes, it's going to strengthen your immune system, and it is an antiviral. So it's a very powerful thing to take in your body during times of COVID. But in my opinion, before COVID and the rest of your life, buy stock in iodine. Okay. You can. It's a commodity. You can buy stock in it. And I suggest it because it's going to skyrocket over the next 5 years. So everybody should be on iodine for their entire life, including all men, women, and children. That's it.
Awesome. Yeah. And well, when you get down to the brass tacks of it, as far as the whole thing with COVID and whatnot, it's all about how strong your immune system is. And your immune system is just like everything else that runs throughout the course of your body. Everything has to be right. All the pieces of the puzzle have to be in place for things to work optimally. And if something's out of whack, then it doesn't. And that goes from everything from your metabolism to your endocrine system to, look at your spine. If you have one thing that's just shifted a little ways, it can cause all kinds of problems in other areas that you wouldn't even think about.
I know. And a lot of that back pain is symptomatic because you're in a terrible relationship. You know what I mean?
Stress. So much of stress is a killer.
Stress and just
absolutely. People exactly. You carry so much stress in your body, and that's why I love lifting weights. There's nothing better for me. I can be It's not just the movement and the working in the muscles and everything. It's just that I'm shifting my state. I'm shifting my position. Because I spend a lot of time doing video production and whatnot, so I spend a lot of time sitting in the desk. So I make it a point to get up and move every hour. I do something, whether it's get up and just walk around the studio. Yeah.
And I've done it.
Exactly.
It's very hard for me to get from working in my head intellectually to get back into my body. But like you said, you just got to keep on switching it off and be committed,
Yeah, for sure. So now we've already kind of touched base. I
was going to say, can I just do a quick disclaimer while I remember a contraindication? If
you can, you can.
People have nodules on their thyroid bed, and they know it. Don't supplement iodine until that is down or removed. And we don't treat, diagnose, or prescribe, but research it on your own. But like I said, we do have an iodine course, and you won't have to read 4 books.
Well, that's a good thing because there are people that like to read 4 books, but I'm not one of them. I'd rather take your course.
People just not have time. They just need someone to tell them what to do, or if they have cancer and they want to know more about the and all that stuff, and prostate. Like men who reverse and prevent can go up to 125 milligrams of iodine, and then once it's reversed, maintain it. So seems like outrageous rates, but again, a healthy thyroid will spill excess thyroid, whereas vitamin A and D. Vitamin A can build up to toxicity for sure, but iodine is not.
D can too. D can give you troubles if you're supplementing too much of it. That's for sure. And and so many people are like, too much of a good thing. You know what I'm saying? They're like, okay, you should supplement with vitamin D for this if you don't spend a lot of time outside. So they go to Walmart or something and they buy these 5,000 IU pills of vitamin D. They take 2 or 3 of them a day. And then the next thing you know, their vitamin D is way out of whack and it gets everything else out of whack too. It's insane.
7,000 milligram doses, there's entire books about vitamin D about those massive doses. But I don't know if they're all super current. But again, if you supplement with vitamin A or vitamin D without each other, major problems. Yeah. It's almost worse than just not supplementing at all,
Yeah. For sure.
Unfortunately,
Okay.
like you said,
So now
supplements
we've
are not.
already. No, go ahead. What were you saying?
That's it. Just they're serious. You need to know kind of what you're doing.
Yeah,
With
for sure. For sure. Yes, absolutely. Now, we've already kind of touched on the whole naturopathic practices for oncology. First of all, for those people that are listening that don't understand what naturopathy is, why don't you give them a brief description of that and then kind of tell us about how those practices are moving into the oncology world?
Okay, sure. That sounds good. So naturopathy is just using natural medicine and preventative medicine for healing instead of immediately relying on surgery or a pharmaceutical drug, just moving towards more natural forms of healing and health. And as far as naturopathic oncology, it's basically, there are some people that are scared out of their skin about chemo or radiation, and they might be your relative, and they may refuse to get conventional treatment, and you may think, well, what can I do to help them? Or maybe that's you, and you're just like, I have to have other options because I just refuse to do it. Not everyone is going to go with the conventional treatment, so naturopathic oncology provides them alternative solutions, and it's risky because cancer is just a risky thing, but it's as risky. Whenever you take our program, you learn everything about conventional medicine and cancer, and you learn everything about alternative cancer care. You can combine them, you can pick one or the other, but the important thing is to make informed decisions for yourself and your family, and just to provide people with options for the people that are too scared to do the conventional route, or some people would say too smart. That's all everybody's business, whatever they decide.
Sure.
I just want to provide information for people to make informed decisions. That's it. I'm not saying anything is better.
Right. Now, what are your theories? Because I know there have been several studies released in the last few years, and I kind of have to wonder myself whether the studies were actually done or have been done and are just now being released because of the fact that everybody's jumping on this low carb or no carb bandwagon when it comes to their nutrition. But I've read several different studies that say that sugar and carbohydrates in and of themselves actually feed cancer cells and increase the growth rate. And there are some studies that are saying they are seeing, pretty decent effects of working with people that have certain types of cancer by putting them on either a low carb or zero carb diet. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, that is a really important question. And that is, like you said, it's all the rage right now. So basically, we address diets, and we address zero carb, ketogenic diets, paleo, carnivore, complete zero carb, i.e. carnivore. And
Yes.
There have been people who have, which we have in our program, reports firsthand, like you can find these people and read their materials, like cured brain tumors with complete zero carb carnivore diets. I've seen, first reports of people that were absolutely bedridden with Lyme disease, throwing up constantly, about to die, and they live on red meat for 20 years, and they're okay. They're thriving now, and they look, honestly, to be truly honest, 20 years younger than what they actually are, But
right.
Yes. But then in terms of like with the cancer and the diets, yes, it's true. So there's this saying, or it's like a fact, that whenever you go to get a scan to find out where the cancer is most active, they put, from what I understand, some kind of a sugar solution into the body, and it will light up where the cancer is. But it's like known that if you just eat a chocolate bar, it'll do the same thing, because the cancer will just draw in all that sugar. That is true with certain cancers. Do feed and thrive on sugar, and only if it's such a disgusting thing that they're always offering cancer patients sugar to build up their appetite, like they don't know that, you know what I mean? Like, here's some candy. Yeah, I wouldn't be doing sugar at all if I were in that situation.
Yeah, I tell so many people. Yeah, because I do. I mean, a lot of my clients, not all,
No, just to be safe. Like I said, it's certain cancers supposedly that only like sugar, but I'm just going to say, in my opinion, hey, you don't know which one for sure, avoid it.
Right. Right. Well, see, that's what I was going to say. A lot of the clients that I work with, a lot of people that come to me are trying to lose excess body fat. I work with a lot of people that have type 2 diabetes because that's my wheelhouse. That's what I reversed in my own life. And when I sit down and I explain how the different macronutrients work in the body, and they realize that, okay, if I eat too much protein, that's okay. My body can get rid of that. If I eat too much fat, my body can get rid of that too. But it can't do that with sugar. Your body has one of two choices. It's either going to store it for fuel, aka fat, if your muscle cells are full, or you're going to burn it for energy. So if you're eating too many carbohydrates, what choices do you have? And when you look at the rate of obesity and the rate that type 2 diabetes is growing, when you sit back and you look at everything, it's like, okay, yeah, sugar, carbohydrates, they're not bad. They're not inherently evil. They're just not good for us. And in the long run, if our bodies can live without them, why eat them?
Mm-hmm. Well, I completely agree. I used to be a fanatical vigilante about sugar, how it was, totally the most evil thing on the planet. People were just so dumb. And then the thing is it just keeps infiltrating into your life, and it's always there, So now I eat a little bit of course, I'm like, I still, it's a cognitive dissonance. I'm like, this is terrible. Even like I don't care. Like what? I mean, honey, that'll put some people into a diabetic shock. You know what I mean? I've seen it. I've seen this.
Absolutely.
Grab a diabetes, had no idea. Completely messed up. But in moderation, like honey in a tea. That to me is a more natural. I don't like how we handle the bees. I think we should be giving bees sugar. That is disgusting to me. You should take less of their honey, and I think be more humane about it, like we expect to be within the factory farming and animal husbandry practices. But regardless of that, I'm with you on sugar not being ideal, and certain fruits are not even ideal in excess, like you see a lot of people dieting, eating grapes, like that's just no. Berries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oranges are crazy. Yeah, oranges are crazy. You see a lot of people dieting, and they'll take 2 or 3 oranges with them to work, and they don't realize just how much sugar they put in their body. Now, granted, oranges have a little bit of fiber with them, so it kind of counteracts the insulin spike some, but it's still way too much sugar.
Absolutely. Or orange juice. Orange juice is just worse, And they just say
that's even worse because they took all the fiber out.
Yes. And 1 cup of orange juice a day is so bad for women. It's just so connected to diabetes too. Like cherries, even. I love cherries, but we need very small, we need smaller portions than what we realize. And I really think the whole thing with weight loss, the whole underlying thing is poor stress management, in my opinion. That's the whole, and it's not even stress management. It's not being in love with your life. If we want to get even deeper with it.
Yeah. And deeper is where it is.
Yes, and at the root of obesity is an inability to self-care because you're dealing with too much stress. You don't know who you are, what you want. Sometimes you've just become someone to everybody else, and sometimes it's unhappiness and toxic relationships.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
The weight falls off.
Yeah, I mean, I'll guarantee you 65% of the work that I do with every client that I have is more about their mindset and dealing with stress than it is anything else. There's only so much you can teach somebody about how much protein you should eat, how much fat you should eat, how many carbohydrates you should eat. It's the numbers are there. They don't lie. The numbers are based on the person. So, okay, this is what you're going to do. But it's everything else. It's like, okay, why is it that you can eat healthy all week long, but on Saturday, when you're home with your kids and your kids are getting on your nerves, why is it that you eat a bunch of crap? Are you emotionally eating? Are you compensating for something else? These are things that people need to figure out, because when they do figure out, that's like unlocking that door to the rest of their life. It unlocks that door to their health.
So here's what they're going to find out when they emotionally eat. What's happened is they've had an argument. They're stressed out about a problem that they're out of control on, and their serotonin levels, dopamine levels all, drop, and then they need that sugar to get that hit so they can function, just so they can function. It is literally self-medicating. You might as well be taking a pharmaceutical drug with side effects.
Absolutely. They get on that dopamine roller coaster.
Yeah. And you can get to the root. And when we eat carbohydrates, it raises serotonin so we can sleep. If you do 0 carb for 4 days and your energy's through the roof, you can't sleep. Eat a bag of plantain, knock out good, It's like, so serotonin, dopamine, things like that, it's chemical imbalances that we're trying to self-medicate. And we all have our versions of drugs. Some of us choose alcohol, some of us food, some of us sex, some of us, whatever, actual drugs.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and people try to rationalize it. They're like, well, at least I'm not doing drugs. I'm just emotionally eating.
No,
or I'm eating a couple bags of potato chips while I'm sitting here watching TV. And they rationalize it and think that this is better than that. And it's really not.
So food is a drug.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One will just kill you faster than the other.
Absolutely. It's another, it's almost like a slow form of suicide. It's unfortunate, and you can really get in it. I mean, you've had diabetes, you've had a food addiction. I don't know if food addiction, I don't think addictions really ever fully go away. They're always like there to sleep. When you reach that stress level, right back to those behaviors, unless you're really grounded. So.
Yep, absolutely. I got to 405 pounds because I was an emotional eater. And it wasn't that I was sad or anything else. I was always under a lot of stress. I worked really hard. I worked a very physical job, and I was always under a ton of stress. So I emotionally ate to compensate for that. And going through everything that I've been through, I still find times where my stress level gets through the roof and I find myself slipping up. The only difference is I'm smart enough to recognize it and say, okay, that happened. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. Recognize it for what it is. And tomorrow's another day and we're going to get back on the wagon, and that's what happens. People have those times where they trip and fall, and it's just a downward spiral from there. They don't just say, okay, that happened. Let's move on.
That happened for 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. Exactly. And I tell
sometimes,
people, oh my God, listen, I tell people, I appear tiny. I know what the conventional standard weight for women is. It's about 5'4", 160. And I'm a little smaller than that. Because I'm smaller, people think, I'm like, I am, seriously, you can't comprehend what a crazy food addict that I am, a binge eater, it comes and it goes. And I can tell you, I just got out of, over the last 10 years, I've been in 2 relationships. I was married, and then I had a 3-year relationship. And in each relationship, you would not believe what happened. You want to guess about weight?
No, go ahead. How much of it was centered around food?
A lot of it because of stress. I gained 25 pounds in each relationship, and we would go and binge together, go out together. And I noticed that all the fights, every fight, every disagreement, every nitpick, every unsettled, I would just turn to food. And I've read, I don't know if it was Pam Grau, but there's someone famous, and they were talking about the craving for sugar is really a craving for the mother's breast and comfort, and
right.
It just turn it. You need mommy, right? Because you're so stressed out, and really finding that inner, that control. Like you said, now for myself, I have a lot more control over it because that stress is gone. The relationships are over. I have space again, and to find myself, really want to pick the right one next time. But it's almost you have to wonder about relationships, right? Is it better to live alone? It can be so toxic.
Yeah.
And I don't want to gain 25 pounds again because I can't cope with whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Now I'm in my 3rd marriage actually. And they say the 3rd time's a charm, and it is. I got a real good one this time. I did. But it's like the first 2 marriages, I didn't have the issues where I was compensating for other things with food. It was always just about stress for me, stress with work, my own inner demons from my childhood. I didn't have a very happy childhood. So I think those 2 things combined And the fact that I've got like Italian and Spanish and Polish in my family, so they're all like crazy cooks. So everything was food. It's like my grandmother was blind, and if she didn't hear us licking our plates at the end of Sunday dinner, she would throw something at us. That's just how I grew up.
Right.
So because it was good. That's just how it was. So I kind of used food for a lot of different things growing up and throughout my life. And now I look at food as fuel. Do I still, I've got 5 kids and 2 grandkids. So do I still, when we have birthday parties and cookouts and stuff, do I still eat a piece of cake? Do I eat watermelon? Do I eat stuff I shouldn't eat? Sure. Because I'm going to live my life.
Absolutely.
Nobody can be 100% regimented all the time. At least that's how I look at it. You've got to live your life. Just don't beat yourself up for it.
I completely agree. I could not myself, I have tried 0 carb and I do feel incredible on it. I do. Because there's are you familiar with Kelly I want to say, not Kelly Brogan. Her name's Kelly, but she does the 0 carb stuff. And she was kind of the person who really came out with it first. She was like 350 pounds. Anyway,
I don't remember her last name. I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah. And then there's another couple, a couple that have done the 0 carb for 20 years. For myself, I'm like you. I'm going to have watermelon and whatever. I'm gluten free and I do try not to eat food. But overall, I'm like you. I can't give it all up right now where I'm at. If I had a critical health condition, if I get something like cancer, I would go 0 carb. That would be my first thing.
Right, exactly. It's like I went through a spell back in 2019. I had to have a full knee replacement, and leading up to that, it took a while to get everything lined up to where I could go in and have the surgery. So I was pretty much inactive for the whole year in 2019. And from somebody that used to be in the gym 6 days a week, going to sitting around on his butt all the time, that was a big shock to my metabolism. And I did pick up some weight, but I didn't pick up as much as probably what a lot of people would have, because I modified my diet. During that whole time, I was running the ketogenic protocol. And then I would have my cheats, Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff like that. But I ran a ketogenic protocol the whole time. And I probably, if I had not done that, I probably would have gained twice the weight that I did.
I agree completely. I do. And ketogenic is so wonderful because it does just keep you full. But I think what people do is they overeat or they don't get their macros right. And you can eat really small portions if the macros are right and literally be stuffed. But if you can also eat really large portions with the macros incorrect and not feel that sense of satisfaction, So you got to do your macros if you're doing keto, guys.
Absolutely. People, I tell people, look, if you're going to do keto, the easiest way to remember it is this. Okay, fat is twice what your protein is. So if you eat 20 grams of protein and you eat 20 grams of fat, guess what? You ate twice the calories with the fat that you have with protein. So just keep that in mind. And usually, if they do that, and most people don't realize that fat is so much more nutrient dense than what protein or carbohydrates is, and it tastes so damn good that it's so easy to overeat that people don't even think about it. I mean, when you tell somebody that you can have bacon and hard cheese and stuff like that, and that can be the staple of your diet, they go hog crazy. And then the next thing you know, they're 2,000 calories over their daily. Yeah, exactly. For sure.
But we've all heard the nightmare. Myself, so you can use I want to say chronometer or chronometer, and then Fat Secret. I use Fat Secret, but I do my macros in there. And I will say for women listening or men, I really do feel that most women are obese because they have prioritized other people over themselves and are in toxic relationships a lot of the time, or have not, all three have learned how to manage their stress. Once you get rid of the root cause, whether it's a narcissistic, something is not, right. So manage your stress, all that stuff. But if you're in the middle of it and you're trying to figure out what all those root causes are, for myself, when I'm having a binge say that I just can't stop binging, I cannot get off the wheel, what I do is
Right.
I have to have macros. Honestly, I can get off the wheel at about 90% fat. That's how damaged my brain is from sugar. Most people don't know that sugar actually damages your brain as though you have been physically beaten. It's facts, and it's 8 times more addictive than cocaine, but we're just like pushing it. And for me to get off that wheel the first 3 days, I've got to almost be at 90% fat, and I can gradually go down, but I can never go under 70% and be functional. I don't do keto now all the time, but when I do it, I have to keep my fat so high. Other people can do 40, 50%, but for me, if you're having trouble with that, just make sure your gallbladder's healthy. I do hear these crazy stories. Oh, keto mess. My mom had whatever keto, and she XYZ.
The only time keto is going to mess you up is if you already have some sort of pre-existing condition. If you have, like, for example, if you're overweight and you already have fatty liver syndrome, you shouldn't do keto because you're going to be taking in a lot more fat. You know what I'm saying? And your body's going to process things differently. It's just like any other nutrition protocol. Every nutrition protocol is not for everybody. So do your due diligence. If you can't do the research on your own or speak with your doctor, work with someone like yourself, with a nutritionist, with a dietitian, whatever, so that way you know that you're on the right track with what you're doing, because people do not realize that these diets can mess you up long term if you do them wrong.
Right. Yes. And also you said, not too much protein. I did the Dukan diet years ago, almost 10 years ago. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's similar to Atkins and zero carb paleo. But it's like you fast like you fast like 1 full day a week, but you eat as much protein as you want the other 2 days. And then the rest of the days, I think you want. There's different versions of it. But I will say, now that I'm getting older and I hear about kidney issues, I do think in general, a lot of protein is fine, but I do think that I have seen people who are trying to do a quote keto diet, but they're really essentially doing like carnivore, and they're having frequent urination and you know what I mean, like pre-diabetic symptoms. So like you said, you really have to pay attention to things like that.
Sure, because protein's great. It's like you can go as little. I think the numbers are just to maintain life, you need like 0.36 grams per pound of body weight. Most people, if they're not going into the gym and doing any kind of physical exercise, they can get away with like 0.68 to 0.82. And then if you're starting to do any kind of exercise where you're burning muscle tissue under any circumstances, even if it's just cardio, you need to be around 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. But you see these people, they read these silly bodybuilding websites and these articles, and the next thing you know, because a guy wants to put on 10 pounds of muscle, he's out here eating 400 grams of protein. Now, your body has to process that protein, and your kidneys are what does that job. So if the protein doesn't get used for amino acid use or whatever, your kidneys get hammered. And long term, doing stuff like that, you can do some serious damage. And then the next thing you know, 10 years down the road, you're on dialysis.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Scary stuff. It is.
Yes.
And then there's all these, like the fruitarians have like, from what I understand, like pancreatic issues from fructose,
Yes.
Things like that.
Everything is so connected that it's crazy. And it's like the old adage, anything in moderation is good. If you do too much of anything, it can be bad.
Except iodine, lots of iodine for myself.
Yes, except iodine, lots of iodine. Okay, well, we're just about out of time. So I'm going to ask you the question, but I'm going to modify it a little bit. I have a question that I ask everybody that I have on the show. In your case, obviously, first and foremost, you want everybody to take more iodine. So outside of that, if you could do one thing to affect health and fitness on a global level, I don't care if it's write a paper, institute a policy, bring forth an idea, other than the iodine, what would it be?
I would make sure that everyone Every household one person in every household attend our school and learn all kinds of things that they can do to help their family and not have to just totally rely on conventional medicine. I think one person in every family needs this information to make informed health decisions for themselves. That's probably what I would do.
You know, I love that answer, and I'll tell you why. Because so many people rely on nothing but conventional medicine that, in my opinion, they miss the boat. They're missing the forest for the trees. You know, everything that was put on this earth was put on here for a reason. And I don't care what your spiritual beliefs are or anything else, but everything was put here for a reason. And use what we have rather than what's being made, if that makes sense.
It does. And I will say, even by the time a child is 2, they've already taken like tons of courses of antibiotics that have definitely affected their microbiome, which might lead to IBS, constipation, irritable bowel syndrome, or other issues later on down the road. And people don't even think about that, you know, so those things, they matter. Think about it. You
absolutely.
know what I mean?
For sure. Okay, well, before I let you go, why don't you let everybody know where they can connect with you? I'm going to put it all in the show notes, but I want them to hear it straight from you, where they can get a hold of you if they want to work with you in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you so much. So you can go to our website. It is schoolofholisticmedicine.com. And that our Instagram is at School of Holistic Medicine. And you can just contact us through our website and we will be in touch. We would love to have you try one of our programs. We have introductory courses for free as well that you can explore.
Fantastic. Okay. Ava, my dear, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be on the show. I learned a lot today, and, you know, I'm sure everybody that hears this podcast is going to feel the same. If you have anything new going on at any point in time, any time you want to come back and talk about anything else, which it seems like we have a lot in common, so we could probably talk about a lot of different subjects, by all means, just reach out to me. I'd love to have you back.
Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful to be here, and yeah, I wish you well with everything you do.
Thank you. Hang tight 1 second. I'm going to flip over and finish this off, and then I'll be right back with you. Wow. I bet you guys didn't know that iodine was that important, did you? You just thought it was in table salt. Can you imagine how much table salt you'd have to eat to get the levels that you need? It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Look, this episode was amazing. Ava's amazing. Make sure you guys reach out to her. You're going to learn a whole lot by working with this woman. I can guarantee it. As far as anything else goes, you guys know I'll be around next week. We'll have another guest. We'll do another show. You know the deal. Subscribe to the channel. Click the bell. Click the Patreon link up in the corner. Click whatever you want to click. I really don't much care. I just want you to keep coming back to see me. Now, until I see you again, you guys know my motto. Playtime's over. It's time to go to work.